Everyone keeps saying the Elegoo Centauri Carbon is the bamboo killer, the endgame printer, the one machine to rule your workshop. But here is the thing, you probably should not buy the Elegoo Centauri Carbon until you know what I discovered after living with it. Because under all that hype, this printer has a very specific type of person it is built for. And if that is not you, it will absolutely waste your money and your patience. I put in over 3 weeks of real testing, more than 120 hours of prints, failed jobs, firmware tweaks, and side-by-side comparisons, so you do not have to learn the hard way. And what I found completely changed how I look at this machine. Before we dive into what I discovered with the Elegoo Centauri Carbon, quick heads up. If you are already half sold and just want to check the current price, I dropped a link in the description. But seriously, stick around, because there are a couple of deal-breaking details you need to hear first. So why did I even grab the Elegoo Centauri Carbon in the first place? I already had slower bed slinger printers that could eventually spit out a decent benchy. If I was willing to wait all night and babysit the first layer like a hawk. I do a lot of functional parts, cosplay pieces, and print-on-demand jobs, and the two big problems were always the same: speed and reliability. Tight deadlines, warped ABS parts, spaghetti failures at hour 10 of a 14-hour print. You know the pain. I kept seeing these high-speed Core XY enclosed machines pop up, and on paper, the Centauri Carbon looked like the sweet spot. Fast, enclosed, auto-leveling, packed with features, without bamboo-level pricing. But I had been burned before. I had tried other so-called high-speed printers that vibrated themselves to death, had trash stock profiles, and turned into tuning projects instead of tools. So when I unboxed the Elegoo Centauri Carbon, I was skeptical from day one. My first test was the out-of-box experience and pure print speed. Setup was straightforward. Minimal assembly, plug in, run the automatic calibration sequence, and load filament. I kicked things off with the usual suspects: a calibration cube, a fast benchy, and some small functional parts using the stock high-speed profile in Elegoo's slicer. At the advertised speeds, I fully expected ringing, ugly corners, and layer shifts. But then the first few prints came out surprisingly clean. Layer lines were tight, dimensions were accurate enough for press-fit parts, and the first layer stuck without me touching a feeler gauge. Not perfect, but way better than I was ready for. But then I pushed it harder. I queued up a tall, multi-hour vase mode print and a large, flat functional part to really test stability and cooling. This is where most high-speed machines start showing their flaws: warped corners, layer line inconsistencies, fan noise like a jet engine. The Centauri Carbon's enclosed design helped keep temps stable, and adhesion stayed solid across the bed. However, once I cranked up speed beyond the recommended profiles, you could see the limits. Subtle ghosting on sharp edges, and the cooling struggled on very small details at insane speeds. So yes, it can go fast, but if you treat every print like a speedrun, you are going to see quality trade-offs. Next, I tested what the enclosure and that carbon branding are supposed to hint at: more serious materials and continuous use. I ran a series of long prints in tougher filaments and let the printer go for 10 to 18 hours at a time. The good news: the frame is rigid, motion is smooth, and it held calibration really well. I did not have to constantly re-level the bed. But here is where it gets interesting. The internal environment is good, not magical. You still need to pay attention to your filament drying and profiles. If you are dreaming of dropping any exotic filament in and getting flawless parts with zero tweaking, this is not that fantasy machine. Then there is usability and software. The touchscreen interface on the Elegoo Centauri Carbon is simple enough. The auto-calibration routine saves a ton of time, and network printing works most of the time. But then you run into little annoyances. The slicer profiles are conservative in some places and overly aggressive in others, and the firmware still feels like it is evolving. It is not broken, but you can tell this ecosystem is younger than some competitors. Quieter than an open-frame bed slinger, yes, but do not expect silent. You still hear fans and motion when it is ripping at high speed. Here is the revelation that really surprised me. The Elegoo Centauri Carbon is way better than I expected, but not for the reasons the marketing wants you to believe. Once I slowed it down just a bit from the absolute headline speeds and spent time dialing in my own profiles, the print quality jumped from good to genuinely impressive. Dimensional accuracy on mechanical parts got tight, surface finish smoothed out, and long prints became boringly reliable, which is exactly what you want. I sunk hours into tuning and testing, and that effort pays off massively with this machine. Compared side by side with more expensive enclosed Core XY printers, the Centauri Carbon holds its own in quality when tuned. You can absolutely get results that look like they came off a much pricier setup. But here is what nobody tells you. If you are buying it purely because it seems like a cheaper, magic, plug-and-play alternative to the most popular high-speed brands, you are going to be disappointed. It is not as polished on the software and ecosystem side. There is a bit more tinkering, a bit more profile tweaking, and you will occasionally hit a firmware quirk or slicer oddity. So the too good to be true factor is this. The Elegoo Centauri Carbon is not the perfect printer for everyone. But if you are willing to put in that initial setup and tuning time, it becomes an absolute monster for the price. Now that you know the real strengths and weaknesses of the Elegoo Centauri Carbon, here is the move. If you are the kind of person who is ready to tune profiles a bit, and you want that high speed, enclosed performance without paying top shelf prices, grab it while it is discounted. I linked the best current offer in the description, but remember, prices on these jump around, so do not wait weeks if you already know it fits your needs. Bottom line, you should not buy the Elegoo Centauri Carbon if you want a totally brainless, plug it in and never touch a setting printer, or if you only print the occasional trinket once a month. For casual users, there are simpler, cheaper options that will make you happier. But if you are an intermediate or advanced user, you care about speed and quality, you are willing to do a bit of dialing in, and you want serious performance without dropping flagship money, the Centauri Carbon is honestly one of the best value plays right now. So yeah, you probably should not buy the Elegoo Centauri Carbon, unless you are ready to actually use the beast you are unleashing.